Hello everyone, welcome to Umbrella's channel. Today I'm going to be going over the origin of the Tyrants as well as how the T-103s were made and who is Sergei Vladimir. Let's go over this. Now, so some people might not know Sergei Vladimir, and I understand, because Sergei Vladimir's first appearance was in Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, and is actually revealed during the game. The player finds out that he was the one that was cloned for the Tyrants, the T-103s, or the T-00s. Sergei Vladimir was one of the colonels in Resident Evil 2. He was actually one of the people that authorized the UBCS go into the city and also deploy the Tyrants. Now, the reason as to why the UBCS was in the city is because their original intention was to kill STARS members. However, instead, they wanted to help people. Now, they were unaware of their true intentions. They didn't know what they were doing. Understandable, as Umbrella does not tell their soldiers what their true intentions are, as Umbrella is a sinister corporation, and then we can all agree that they are very much bastards. And that they really like to keep things quiet. And they kind of fail at that, though. Let's be honest, they fail at keeping things quiet. Anywho, now in Resident Evil 0, there is a boss called the Proto-Tyrant, or the T-001, which was the very first Tyrant. This Tyrant was made via the use of the T-virus. However, its mutation failed. It had a failed mutation, and it was easy to kill. Of course, it still had it was no different from the T-002. It could run, had a sharp claw, and could kill. So do not underestimate this creature when I just said it's easy to kill. What I mean by this is if you have an RPG or an ATR, I recommend using an M202 flash to be sure it could be killed easily, as its skin was not immune to an RPG. Now, many Tyrants before their skin is that thick that bullets can't penetrate them. The T-103s stop this weakness, however, from the RPGs. They can stop this weakness because of their trench coats, which I will go over in a minute. Which I've already explained in a short, however, I will do this for the video so it can make sense for people. Let's go over this. So, it was also revealed that Sergei Vladimir and Albert Wesker had a pretty good, decent relationship during the events of RE0 and before Albert Wesker got his superpowers after being killed by the T-002 and before the mansion incident, before anything. The train was attacked by T-leeches. And it was revealed after the train crash, Albert Wesker appears there. He leaves the facility to all the STARS members after saying goodbye to William Birkin. He then encounters Sergei Vladimir, who attacks him because he has failed. I don't know why he actually attacks him. I need to actually look into that. Anywho, Sergei Vladimir they've already managed to cook up a proto T-103 called an Ivan. Now, I consider an Ivan to be a proto T-103 as the T-103s were in the process of being cloned. So the Mr. X that we're used to, with not the white futuristic trench coat, but rather the green, the darkish trench coat, or the black one, whatever Tyrant's your favourite. Personally, my favourite's the remade version of the Tyrant. Then Sergei unleashes the Ivan Tyrant onto Albert Wesker. However, Wesker wins in this fight, and Sergei Vladimir then leaves him alone. It is also revealed that Sergei Vladimir was also taking one of the creatures out from the mansion with the help of his Ivan. However, he would have been outnumbered by the Cerberus if it wasn't for the help of his personal man, the Ivan. The Ivan managed to help him for the Cerberuses that were across the Arklay Mountains. They then made their way to the Umbrella facility. I don't know what happens next. I can assume they do something with the zombie, dissect it or something. Anywho, Albert Wesker, after escaping the mansion, he then creates the Wesker Foundation shortly after, and goes undercover, and avoids Chris Redfield for the time being, up until 1999, that's the year that Code Veronica takes place, because in Code Veronica it says 6 months later, and that's pretty obvious because Raccoon City was annihilated on October the 1st. So 6 months later is a year, more of a year later. Now I don't know what month that would be. 6 months later. I apologise for not knowing the month or the time where it is. But I will go over Code Veronica quite soon. Anywho, the Tyrant Umbrella uses Sergei Vladimir's blood to clone the Tyrants in perfection. There's also another reason as to why they wear trench coats. Sergei Vladimir, his appearance shows him with a scarred eye, white hair, a navy blue trench coat, and brown boots. Like a colonel would have. Makes sense. But that explains as to why the Tyrants have trench coats. There are other reasons, such as the trench coat acts as a power limiter to halt their mutation, and also acts as armor. But mostly, that's the other reason as to why that's the appearance of it. That's why the power limiter looks like that. Is because it's Sergei Vladimir's design. Except the trench coat is not navy, but it's dark green, as we all know. Now, I can assume this is what Sergei Vladimir looks like in the remake. He wears a black trench. Obviously he will be wearing a navy trench coat. If they plan to ever remake the Umbrella Chronicles, I can assume this is his trench coat appearance. Anywho, during the events of Raccoon City, Sergei Vladimir orders the use of the UBCS. However, they see that this is the perfect opportunity for the use of the Nemesis T-type. The Nemesis T-type was genetically engineered at the Umbrella Europe headquarters, and after that, after being created, he was made for the purpose of hunting down what's left of the Special Tactics and Rescue Services, or STARS for short. He then hunts down Jill Valentine and any other STARS members that are still remaining. Nemesis will obviously still kill anyone, but his main targets are most of the STARS. This is an example of him killing Brad Vickers. Now, what's left of STARS, if you can recall, Barry Burton, Rebecca Chambers, Chris Redfield, Jill herself included, had survived the mansion incident, including Albert Wesker, but they were unaware that he was still alive. So they had all left the city to either get away from the life and go into therapy, or continue the hunt for Umbrella. Mostly the hunt for Umbrella. Anywho, but Jill, however, remained in the city. But that would be the biggest mistake, as she would end up in the events of Resident Evil 3, Nemesis. Anywho, Nemesis was a successor of the Tyrants. He could hunt down more quicker and was more stronger and more superior than the Tyrants. This is not to mean, however, Nemesis could still take on a Tyrant, but if you read the Monhoil of Resident Evil, it is shown that Nemesis nearly got defeated by the hands of a Super Tyrant. And now the Monhoil, I think that's a Japanese one, I'm pretty sure. But Nemesis managed to defeat the Super Tyrant. This just goes to show that Nemesis is far superior than them, and is quite stronger than them as well. But getting back to the Tyrants, at least 10 Tyrants would be deployed into Raccoon City. At least that's what I think the number of them are. 10 Tyrants, however, there was more than just 10. There was a facility somewhere. It is said in Resident Evil there was a facility where the Tyrants are made. Some sort of the Tyrant plant where they are made. Now, I don't know where this is. Unfortunately, I don't have the information, which kind of annoys me because you guys, I really need to give you a lot of information about this, and you guys really will get pissed off because you won't know anything about where do they keep these bald-headed, pale-faced, emotionless, well, aggressive if you want to do the Dark Side Chronicles, because it's seen that Tyrant's very aggressive. Pale-eyed, stalking, creepy-ass motherfuckers. But, getting back to the point, one of these Tyrants would encounter Leon S. Kennedy, or Leon Scott Kennedy. Leon had arrived into Raccoon City as it was his first day as a rookie. Little did he know, he would be in for a nightmare. And he managed to survive getting into the police station. However, he realized that this place wasn't safe either, and he needed to escape. Now, I don't need to go over the remake, and I will probably follow a bit of a remake here, as I don't understand the RE. I've not seen the full RE2 original game, so I will go into the original remake. Shortly after arriving, Leon encounters more zombies. However, he is saved by Marvin, who has been bit by Brad Vickers and the Resident Evil 3. Now, Leon tells Marvin that there's a way out of the police station. After finding all of this, Marvin says he has to stay behind as he is not far from becoming a zombie. Leon wants to help him, and this just goes to show Leon has great courage and bravery. However, it is too late for Marvin, as he will be uncurable and wants to be left alone, and hopes and prays that Leon does not make a similar fate or a similar mistake than him. Shortly after that, Leon realizes that he needs a police parking key to get out of the police station. He then heads to the jail cells, where he encounters Ben Betterico. I think that's how you say his second name. I don't know. However, shortly after, the conversation is little too short. After Ben becomes aggressive and wants out of the cell, he is then attacked by Mr. X, or the Tyrant, being crushed by the wall. The Tyrant then soon discovers that there is another police officer still alive. The Tyrant will not bother with the zombies, as they are pretty much already dead. However, after he sees Leon, he realizes his work is not done, and he has to kill Leon. The reason to this is because all police officers had to be wiped out, as it is said that the STARS members told the police officers about the Mansion incident. Obviously, they didn't believe him. But Chief Irons, the corrupt bastard of the police force, believed them. But he knew about this, but he didn't say anything. And plus, he had to cover it up as well. Deep down, Chief Irons was a psychopath, and we can all agree that he deserved a fatal death at the hands of William Birkin. Anywho, Leon would first encounter Tyrant at the right side of the police station. After putting out the fire in the helicopter, Leon would encounter Tyrant after he lifts a helicopter with just one hand, showing that he will crush Leon with just one hand. It just goes to show that he has the great strength to break every bone in his body. He is basically Bane. Well, not Bane, because look, there is differences, but yeah, you can compare them. But look, I might go over some parts of Batman stuff as well. Anywho, throughout the game, Leon would encounter Tyrant more often. Tyrant's job was to retrieve the G-Virus and kill any remaining police officer or survivor. This is just showing that they might have believed them, I think. I mean, police officers wouldn't believe that stuff, but then Raccoon City goes to hell, so they might believe it. Now, what kind of annoys me, Marvin does not mention, like he does in the original game, about the STARS members or anything, but we can assume that the STARS members said something about this. As, let's face it, this is RE2, and the Arkley Mountains incident definitely happened. Getting back to the topic at hand, Leon would be pursued by, as I said before, he would be pursued by the Tyrant. The Tyrant was very persistent. It was also revealed that there were two other Tyrants as well. Sorry, another Tyrant pursuing Claire. However, this Tyrant's journey would be short-lived, as he would be killed by William Birkin, who was shown a bit of his humanity. However, after that, a couple of seconds later, he would lose control again. But we're talking about the Mr. X that pursues Leon. Anywho, after Leon obtains the ID card in the garden area. Now, before this, Leon encounters a woman called Ada who saves him from the Tyrant after he manages to retrieve the key card to get out of the police station garage, the parking garage. However, Tyrant pursues him and breaks through a wall. It is also possible for Tyrant to break through the press room wall as well. Now, this is possible if Leon goes to the bottom back of the police station, and if he do alleys, well, that's the Scottish slang term for messing around, the Tyrant will break through the wall. Most of you already know this because the game's 2019, but just to point out. Anywho, he almost has his neck crushed if it wasn't for the help of Ada Wong, who hits the Tyrant and then blows him up. After it shows that a truck will not stop Tyrant either. Leon does not encounter Mr. X until the garden area. Now, in the remake, he encounters Mr. X again in the sewers, but in the remake, Mr. X is encountered in the garden areas once again. He is encountered in the garden area as he breaks through the glass shortly after Leon obtains the ID card to get to the area 3 in the Nest Umbrella facility. Once again, Tyrant, it just shows us that Tyrant is a very persistent character. Hold on. Yeah! And we'll stop, sorry about that. And we'll stop at nothing until Leon is dead. After defeating William Birkin in his third form, Leon has to escape the facility, and after losing Ada, well, we all know she's still alive, Leon heads down and escapes the facility. However, before he can get to the train, he encounters Mr. X for the final time. Mr. X chases him through the exploding facility and nearly crushes his skull if it wasn't for one of the engine room blowing up on his face. Now, the Tyrant is then hit so many times that the power limiter around him malfunctions and causes it to deactivate, leading up to Tyrant's mutation. Mr. X then mutates into a Super Tyrant form, and he also has become vulnerable with a weak spot. However, he will not be killed unless an RP. I mean, oh no, wait, hold on, shit, bollocks. The only way to kill him is by an RPG. And his Super Tyrant form is revealed to show him with a giant claw. Now, I must have actually point this out to you. If you look at Tyrant's character model, you can see that the Tyrant has 3 belts strapped to the very arm that mutates into a giant claw. Where in his other arm, there's only two belts. This shows that this Tyrant's arm must have been eager to mutate, and that's quite actually interesting. It also reveals Tyrant with the loss of his jaw as well as flaming red eyes, and his arm looks like a badass at this point. However, some parts of his trench coat still remain. After you kill the Tyrant, if you shoot at his trench coat, well, shoot at his legs, it makes metal sounds. Well, that's what people would do. They already know that. We all know the story. Leon escapes the facility, however, re-encounters William Birkin for the final time, and they uncouple the train that he's on and kill William Birkin. However, it was not the end for the Tyrant. It was not the end for Leon and his encounter with a Tyrant. The encounters that I know of so far are Resident Evil Damnation. In Resident Evil Damnation, it showed something about communism or something, and during this civil war, or I think a civil war anyway, the rebels in that or something, I don't know what they're called, are using bioweapons in their battle. However, this is via the use of the last Plaga parasite to control the lickers, which is not a good idea, as within a couple of hours' time, they themselves will become a last Plaga zombie, or it's referred to as a Garnado. After Leon gets into the facility and escapes the guards after nearly getting shot at, the Lickers break into the facility and attack all the guards. The president also she escapes the facility along with her assistant. One of the Lickers then attempt to break through the glass again, however, is intervened by a giant test tube that reveals to show a Tyrant. A special type of Tyrant. This is an odd version of a Tyrant. I like the design. It's sort of a steampunk design or something, you have to say. Now, this Tyrant does not know Leon, or this Tyrant does not know him at all, as they don't share the same memory. They're not robots. But, well, never mind. There's also revealed that there are 3 Tyrants in the facility. The 2 Tyrants go down the elevator, while another one that chases Leon, the other one chases Leon and his friend. The Tyrant then chases them throughout the courtyard, I think, or I don't know whether it's throughout the capital. After the Tyrant is distracted by a Licker that leads him up to an oil tank, blowing him up. This damages his trench coat further, and he mutates into his Super Tyrant form. And this type of Tyrant is more stronger than the one that we were used to. This one is more taller as well. Tyrant goes around at least 7.5 feet tall. This Super Tyrant, however, is more taller than a truck. Actually, I think he was even more taller than a truck before. I think he still remains the same height, except he has more strength. Or I think he has actually grown to a bigger height. I'm not sure. But Leon, with the help of his friend, who controls the Lickers, but is also over time becoming a Garnado, uses a tank to decapitate the Tyrant and kill it. However, there are 2 other Super Tyrants remaining, and if it wasn't for the help of the Americans, Leon and his friend, safe to assume, would have been killed by the 2 Super Tyrants. Now, an RPG does not stop this Super Tyrant's form. However, it can be killed by giant missiles from jet fighters and that, such as turrets and that. So massive turrets can kill this Tyrant. Massive turrets can kill it. And that's the encounters that Leon has so far with the Tyrants. Let's go back to Sergei Vladimir. After that, Sergei escapes the city with the Red Queen, who is the one that stopped Albert Wesker from getting access to the files shortly after he came back to life. Albert Wesker becomes enraged and will hunt down the Red Queen. In 2003, the year that Umbrella falls, Albert Wesker encounters Sergei Vladimir for the final time. Sergei Vladimir reveals that he escaped Raccoon City with the Red Queen, which is the giant crate that's under his helicopter, which I can assume that's the Red Queen. Unaware that Ada Wong is under it. Albert Wesker then fights Sergei Vladimir in his mutated form. Sergei Vladimir reveals to Albert Wesker that he was the one that had been cloned with the use of the Tyrants, and that he considers all T-103s or T-00s or Mr. X's to be his brothers. Well, that kind of makes sense because it is from his DNA, but they don't. Well, they're all bald. You know, they don't share their haircut or that. But Albert Wesker, as I said before, Albert Wesker had great strength and super speed in that, and without these powers, he most likely would have been killed by Sergei Vladimir. I mean, Chris doesn't have superpowers, and he's faced off a lot of creatures, but I don't really know. Probably, but Sergei Vladimir was very aggressive towards Albert Wesker. Albert Wesker also kills his two Ivans. It was in 1998. Sergei Vladimir had one Ivan. However, in 2003, it's shown that he has 2 Ivans, But this does not stop Albert Wesker from taking them down. It was a real pain in the ass when I was playing Umbrella Chronicles. It took me 4 tries. But I got it done eventually. Albert Wesker, after defeating Sergei Vladimir and killing him, would then shut down the Red Queen and destroy Umbrella permanently, deleting all the files in that and taking control. Not of the facility, but he gets something else instead and begins his new Wesker Foundation. And that's the end of Sergei Vladimir and the Tyrants. However, even after Sergei Vladimir, similar versions of Tyrant was shown over the years, such as Glenn Ares' form and Diego, who resembles that of Tyrant a bit. He's like a bit of a pursuer. Then there was also Unis Danak. Now I should point out what that means in Siberian. Now I'm going to tell you what that means in Siberian. It means revolution. Unis Danak was similar to Nemesis, however, he was based on Nemesis because he carried weapons, was also ugly as well, and very big and very strong. But the only difference he had with Nemesis, the only difference was the giant robotic claw hand. The claw hand reminded me of Nemesis and his tentacles, as a robotic claw hand was able to grab people like some sort of grappling hook, which was very interesting. I will go over Unis Danak as well as who created him and his origins in Resident Evil 6. Now, looking back on all this, this shows us the true parts of Umbrella. Sergei Vladimir was obsessed with Umbrella and wanted to bring and would say that they would never fall. However, as I said before, after he was killed, Umbrella was finished because of Albert Wesker. Of course, yeah, there was Chris and Jill, and the original death for Umbrella was stock market. That's how they died, of stock market. But I would have to consider their death being losing all their data and their final facility. I kind of like their death in Resident Evil, the final chapter though. I think that death is more better than stock market, wouldn't you agree? Or do you think the stock market death is better? I don't really know. That's how a company would normally die. That's the main death for a company. The loss of stock market. Anywho, that's it, guys. That's the end of the video now. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, share with your friends. If you didn't like it, you can put in a dislike. Subscribe to the channel. I will be posting more often, more regularly. And any information I find about Resident Evil that comes up that's very interesting, I will tell you about. And share my opinions with you guys. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.